right, on to our main event, A Moment with Monica. Our amazing friend Monica Lewinsky typically needs no introduction, but in a way she does, because most of the world doesn't know how sweet, brilliant, innovative, and freaking funny Monica is. For the humor, just follow her on Twitter. But a few of us tonight actually know the real Monica Lewinsky and what a gift she is. So while you may think she's here because of her advocacy work on behalf of youth, especially when it comes to bullying, her connection with HMI is actually more personal than that. When we reached out to Monica to see if she would be a part of this evening's celebration to celebrate Alfredo and Rob, she didn't hesitate to say yes. And she didn't even know what she was saying yes to. She just literally said yes. And then she just heard from us later on as far as what her participation would be. And so what the participation is we're just gonna have a fireside chat with Monica. And I'm gonna start off with two questions, and Rod and I will ask you a few questions, Monica. The first question is simply, why did you say yes so quickly? And how did you first learn about HMI?
Well, I think that sort of all of my ways into HMI are with people whom I love and respect and adore. And so they're always going to get, you guys, you two, and the rest will always get a fast, easy yes for me, unless it's to go skydiving. But I think, you know, I first became aware of HMI because of my friend of 22 years, Alan Cumming. But I really fell in love with HMI as I got to know Otho and Rod and Rob in the last couple of years. And I don't know if people know, although am I allowed to tell how we met? Like, or is that?
Sure.
Okay, well, just
it wasn't in a back room. You can say anything.
We're in the room where it happened. Yeah, so Otho and I met about 6 years ago when I was giving my TED Talk. And I was assigned a host who would look after me and basically make sure I didn't run away when I got to Vancouver. And we bonded instantly and sort of had this friendship which has gone on. But he can maybe tell you this sort of longer story. I think it was the beginning of our friendship was cemented in the fact that I won him over because I answered my own phone, that I don't have an assistant. And like, he just couldn't get over that.
I was told to call Monica Lewinsky. I was given her telephone number and I called her and she picked it up. I was floored.
So it was sort of I mean, that's what one does. But so that was where our friendship started. And, you know, as we bonded, he has really folded me into his family that includes Rod and Rob and Rufus and Stephen and David Mixner and Daryl. So I've been very blessed. And that has, of course, brought me to be closer and closer to HMI, and grateful that you're all here and doing what you can during what is a terrible, fucked up period. Sorry. Excuse, am I allowed to swear? Sorry.
Too late.
Yeah. All right, next question.
Monica, I'll lead us into some conversation here, I suspect. And what I lift up is, speaking of TED, two things that actually signaled your re-entry into public life on your terms, by the way. One was the op-ed piece in Vanity Fair, was that 2014, right? And then followed shortly thereafter by the TED Talk, 2015. Both of those pieces, the TED Talk and op-ed in Vanity Fair, introduced you back into public life, but as patient zero of internet shaming. Here's my question for you in the company of those that are gathered with us tonight. Tell us what that launched for you then. This is going back 5-6 years, relative to service to youth. And second, with that, what additional perspective does that give you, and should it give us, relative to say, being in a position of advocacy, anti-bullying. So 2014 and 2015, re-entry on your terms. What have those last 6 years been like, especially around serving youth and your messages falling on the ears of youth, hopefully into their hearts? How do we get drawn into that as well?
I'm going to back into my answer with a story. So when after I graduated, I got a master's in social psychology and graduated in 2006, and then I couldn't find a job. And that was when I really realized, in many ways, the damage that had been done to my reputation by the events of 1998. But it was during what I kind of call this dark decade that was a challenging period for me. I was back in LA where I'm living now again. And my mom had said I was in a dark place, and she said, you have to get out of yourself and you have to volunteer and try and focus on other people. And I had what ended up being a really terrible experience, not to bring everybody down, which was around, I'd found a program that really resonated with me of youth doing art programs when their parents are in court. And I was basically told, the short of it was I was told that they were concerned about me volunteering for this program and being around the children, and what would the parents say, even though the parents were in court because they were accused of not taking care of their children the right way. So I share that with you to understand what it meant for me in 2015 after the Vanity Fair piece and the TED Talk it's making me emotional, sorry. To have a pathway paved open where I could participate, where I could give back, where I could use my past and give it a purpose.
Wow.
And that my involvement would be welcomed. And it wasn't always, but it's getting better and better. So that kind of bookends, I think that really explicates like what that change was like for me. So since the TED Talk, I'm unbelievably fortunate because I don't have my own organization. I'm able to support as an ambassador a number of different anti-bullying organizations, like the Diana Ward and Project Rocket and the Tyler Clementi Foundation, whether it's in direct involvement or amplification. And the last several years, I've focused a lot of my advocacy work around using creativity to help change social behavior. And that's been through anti-bullying campaigns that I've done PSAs with BBDO New York that we've launched for October's Anti-Bullying Prevention Month. Yeah. So that's kind of been, I think that's like the scope of where my activism has been in advocacy. And I think around the messaging of it too, especially with young people, it's really around, at the core of it is like, please don't suffer in silence. So the worst thing that can happen is for someone who's experiencing bullying behavior to feel shamed to a degree that they feel they cannot tell anybody, because that's when it gets dark fast. So.
I hear you.
Yeah, thanks, Monica. Did you want to say something, Rod?
No.
Oh, okay. Monica, the last 4 years we had the bully in chief. And we're curious, with the bully in chief having the bully pulpit, if you will, did that validate bullying? Did that prove the ineffectiveness of bullying? Did it make your job easier or harder?
Both.
Give us some context.
Yeah, both. I mean, I think it's to your point where it was easier is there was no denying in the last 4 years that we have a bullying, really, I've been saying pandemic, it's beyond an epidemic, but we have a bullying crisis in this country. And I think that we were seeing this as adults, with the most powerful adult in the country displaying behavior which we would call on a playground, we would call that person a bully. I worked really hard to not engage in the political rhetoric around him being a bully while he was in office, because I was very mindful that I never wanted the work that I was doing to alienate anybody, or if someone, a parent didn't agree with what I was saying, they may not pass along something to their child. So for me, it was personally, but of course it was harder too. Not only for how it affected all of our mental health on social media, or what it meant for adults to be, I'll speak for myself. There may be people here who were Trump supporters, so I don't, but for me, terrified for 4 years, not just for myself, but for many friends of mine who are in different marginalized groups. So where it was also really challenging is it's incredibly hard to be trying to spread a message of kindness, or clicking with compassion, or being mindful of bullying behavior in different arenas, when the most visible person in the country is modeling that very behavior that you're trying to get people not to do. So, I'm happy I don't have to sidestep any of that anymore. And, there were a lot of, I think I was asked a lot about Melania and Be Best. And, my feeling had been, it wasn't, in the same way I didn't like people telling me I didn't belong somewhere. It wasn't my place to say she didn't belong, and she had access to a lot of resources, which, might have helped save someone's life. I might have used those resources differently when it came to anti-bullying, but,
That's true.
Yeah.
Monica, I think we don't have much time. We could talk forever, but we're just going to ask you one closing question. And that is, the last 7 years of your life have been a complete reversal of the prior 16 following the scrutiny you received after the events of 1998. Getting to a place where you could re-enter public life, if you will, was a tough journey, which I know. Leave us with 2 words, one that would describe that journey, 16 years in following 1998, and another word to describe the other side, the last 7.
That's a great question. I have not been asked that before. That's really good.
That's why he's my co-host.
And one of my best friends. I would say for the period after the investigation until 2014, I would say torture. And in terms of the last 6-7 years, wow. Wow. We have
wow.
Yeah, in my family, we have a joke, it's called the wow folder. And it's sort of, some insane thing that none of us could have ever imagined would happen to me, or I meet somebody who connected to my story or said something compassionate, maybe they were a well-known person or not, or an opportunity comes and we're like, oh my God, wow. That's always a wow. That's the response. So we made this joke of like, put it in the wow folder, another for the wow folder. So I'm very, very grateful. And thank you for asking me to be here tonight. HMI does such important work, really, really important work in terms of helping people, which it's, and this is that thread through with the anti-bullying work, and what HMI is doing too is around, if you're somebody who identifies as having been bullied, it means you've been harassed, usually for some aspect of who you are. You've been made to feel shame. And I think that what HMI does is help a lot of LGBTQ youth who may have experienced the same effect from different behavior or some other form of bullying. And it is just, I'm so grateful to know that you guys exist and all you do to help so many. So thank you.
Monica, all we can do is say, wow.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you for connecting the dots with your work in HMI. Thanks for all of you do. And you're just wow. Thank you. Thanks, Ron. And I know you have a crazy schedule. We're going to excuse you. Monica's got a bunch of things going on in Hollywood. And thank you for honoring HMI and Alfredo and the Phluid Project tonight.
Yes, yes, the Phluid Project, Alfredo, Rob, I just thank you so much. Have a really wonderful evening, everybody. And now I'm going to go on a diet so this jacket fits the next time.
Thanks,
Bye,
Monica.
Monica.
All right, this brings our VIP session to an end. We're going to take a short break and transition into the main